Okay, yeah, perfect. Loading, and I think we're almost live. Okay, perfect. Redirecting to YouTube. Okay, and we're live. So, hi everyone, and welcome back to another live with Jochen Schleese from Schleese Saddlery. For those of you who haven't tuned in before, he's a master saddle fitter and knows a lot about horse biomechanics and saddle fit. And today we're talking about common saddle fit misconceptions. So I'll let you take it away, Jochen, because we only have half an hour. So yeah, you can get started and I might have some questions.
All right. Shelby, thanks very much for having me. And in order to explain this a little bit better, I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
And then, you know me, pictures say more than 1,000 words.
Yeah.
So we have two beings. One is an animal, one is a human. And they have two spines. One is a horizontal and one is a vertical. And the part in between the saddle is the interface. So the goal or the question we should ask ourselves, what are we trying to achieve? We need support as a rider, and we want to give the aids to the horse. If we jump, if we do racing, if we do Western or dressage, there is a piece between us we call the saddle. So when it comes to saddle fitting, there's many misconceptions. Number one fits all. There is no such a thing. It's kind of like a shoe. How can one shoe size, never mind narrow, medium, wide, and the foot, also the length, fit all humans? Just like just like humans, the horse's skeleton will develop while you already start to apply saddles to the horse's back. You put on little kid shoes while they still grow. Now in the industry and riding, we have areas what changes the three-dimensional change where the rider sits on it. So if the trainer trains the horse, gets better, they do a good job, they get more muscles, well, your saddle doesn't fit anymore. So you have two choices out there. Number one, you can buy a saddle what fits for that time being, and that's it. So if the horse got more muscles, got more strength, the bones develop more, you need to buy a new saddle. So the misconception you see a lot is they think I can buy a pad.
Yeah.
Put this in perspective. If your child outgrows the shoe size, more socks or an insole will not help. It will make it worse. Now, how can I be so sure about it? Well, very easy, because there's enough universities, there's enough skeleton research, there's enough evidence which deforms or cripples the horse. So that's a huge concern for people who love their horses and people who want to make sure I don't want my saddle to hurt my horse. So the option number two is you can buy saddles what can be adapted. So in other words, they change with the horse. So you can make the tree bigger in the angle or in the width. Now they have saddles you can change the gullet plates, or you can change the panel, the undercarriage of the saddle. The industry came a long way, so the customer doesn't have to buy always the new saddle. So summarizing it up, misconception number one size fits all forever and ever does not exist. People who want to sell you that, they want to keep selling you new saddles. If you don't have that kind of money and you don't want to spend the money in veterinarian care or don't want to send your horse too early into retirement because of saddles what deform your horse or cripple or hurt your horse severely, or get it adjusted, right? And that's possible.
Yeah. I've also noticed like half pad companies that will market themselves with like the idea that their half pad magically makes any saddle fit a horse. And
Crazy.
That's something I've seen a lot of people fall into since half pads are so much cheaper than saddles.
That's right. And that's, at least I feel like, hey, I do something good, let's go with that. But it doesn't really help you, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So let me show you this here. Maybe that puts it in perspective. A second the horse carries a human, no matter Western racing or dressage or jumper, doesn't matter, okay? This rib cage here, you're looking at a horse from the front. It hangs by muscles, by the shoulder muscle and the upper arm muscles. They hang like a hammock. So when the horse carries weight, professional or pleasure, doesn't matter, these muscles get stronger because they carry stuff. So now look at the rib cage. My mouse here is on the sternum. Okay. So now if you look down here, the sternum is down there.
Wow.
So if your horse gets ridden, okay, that will come up. And now you see the top, it looks completely different. The withers to the shoulder. It's a much steeper angle, higher withers. And it's the same, I can compare to humans. When they slouch, they're 5'8". When they stand up, they might get over 6 feet because their whole spine erects, right?
Yeah.
What is there so important with the saddle fitting? Check out this area here, the withers is right beside here, the cross section.
Mm-hmm.
These three top muscles, splenialis, trapezius, rhomboideus, they are so thin and so sensitive. Think about somebody takes a karate chop and hits you in the neck right here where the shoulder joints, or pinches you hard. It hurts so much.
Mm-hmm.
So the saddle needs to sit on this big, fat, long muscle, longissimus dorsi. Look how thick that thing is. All right? So for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, the saddle was meant to sit on that long muscle. So if I have a horse, what is comfortable and goes well, then the horse goes nice and round, which means the back comes and the hind leg goes underneath. And look at the front fetlock. It's not bent through like on this one.
Yeah.
If the horse hollows the back, then the rider falls back. Okay. So misconception number 2 is the saddle cannot pinch on the withers. No, people heard that before, pinching the withers. Okay. But what does that really mean? These three muscles, 1, 2, 3, rhomboideus, trapezius, splenialis, the saddle cannot hang off that area. Misconception number 2 is, when the horse is crooked, I'm going to train him straight. Absolutely, you have to train him straight. Okay, that's number 5 in the training scala. But sometimes, if you have a deformed arm from birth or a deformed legs from birth, no matter how much training you do, you will not change your bone structure. You cannot deform your bone structure. You could have made plastic surgery, okay? But when a saddle falls to one side or the other, does the rider falls to the left or to the right? Okay, you compensate by leaning over. Okay, so the saddle goes to one side and then you lean over. So this is often a case, and people don't do anything about it because they think, I can't have my saddles fit to this because God forbid my horse gets straight. And then when my horse is straight, then I'm stuck with the saddle what goes to one side. Let's get this right. So you're going to try to train a horse sitting crooked like that and expect the horse to be even? Right? So some people say, you can launch a horse straight. How in the world can you launch a horse straight if the horse has a deformed upper arm in the body? Like look at this upper arm. You can't get that right to training. This pink here, these are muscles, okay? These muscles you may develop straight once you sit straight. How can you expect the horse to become balanced if you don't sit balanced on the horse? So if I'm looking at the horse from the top, okay, that big left shoulder, and that back left shoulder pushes the saddle, and the cantle moves to the right, no wonder the first leg what pops the splint is the front left. No wonder the first stifle what gets injected or hog is the back right. We see worldwide a pattern. Why? Because I seriously think I can launch or ride a horse straight when I don't know if it's muscle or bones. You just don't know. Unless the horse is dead, you can never know. Because today with MRIs, we don't know. We can't put the whole rump, the whole body of the horse through this machine. We can put the neck in it, the head, the legs, but not the rump, like the whole rib cage. So if I look at dead horses and I see how the left shoulder completely got hammered because the tree wasn't open up because somebody had an opinion, no, don't open the metal on the bigger shoulder. Hello? Isn't that what farriers do when they shoe horses? No? So many horses have the high heel and low heel syndrome. Do you honestly believe that the farrier will always make the metal 100% straight? No, the horse would be lame. So one of the misconceptions I cannot stand, if a horse is born with a spinal versus with a transitional vertebrae, so where the lumbar is much bigger on one side than the other, that horse will always avoid to have pressure there, because the nerves would come out of the nerve channel here. On the normal rib, on the normal lumbar, it goes underneath. When they're born with this deformity, it runs on top.
Oh, wow.
And that means some horses, they don't even like you to have a large blanket on it, like a saddle pad. If you ever know a person, or you had yourself, this is a skin sickness, I think it's shivers. So when you have the nerve sensitivity on your rib cage, on your belt, you can't even have a shirt on it. It's so annoying. So because the nerves are very close to the top of the skin on the human. So think about the horse has this nerve here. And think about that higher side kicks the saddle to the left or to the right. How can you straighten the horse? How can you build this bone straight? You can't. Okay. So the saddle will shift to the lower side unless you compensate for it. If you don't, the horse will compensate. I have severe scoliosis, then the lumbar goes out, then the SI goes out, and then of course we start from the bottom up with injection. And the real problem really is sometimes very simple. Get that saddle to sit straight, just like a farrier. If you have to give that bigger side more room, give that bigger side more room.
Yeah.
Don't ever think that the smaller, underdeveloped side will get bigger when you fall into it. I mean, these beautiful horses. This horse here won everything in Europe. One show season later, he got euthanized because it broke his front right leg, because he constantly lands hard on the right. So if equipment can make it a little easier, and people start to look what's sitting on top. Okay, how crooked or even they sit. Because in the end of the day, we want to bring our spine absolutely straight over the horse's spine. And we want to sit the way we stand, shoulder, hips, and heels. Okay. Only then we are gentle and soft to the horse. If we don't, the deformity is given. I mean, this is not opinion. This is not a sales pitch of saddle fitting. This is facts. Okay?
Yeah.
Take a hammer and you hit me hard on my toe with your hammer. The fact is, I'm going to break my toe, or you're going to break my toe if you hit a hammer. Another misconception is that there is no difference between male and female riders. Look how much shorter the tailbone is on the female. And I don't care if you are a very small female or very wide hip or small hip. All of the female pelvises are short in the tailbone. All of the hip sockets and leg is more forward than on the male. Majority of the girls have more lordosis, more curvature in the lower back than the male.
Interesting.
And when we look from the bottom, okay, you want to sit on your seat bone. When you stand, you're standing on your legs. So your pelvis axis. So when we made by nature to stand up, it's very easy because we're standing on our feet, which are connected to our legs, and the legs connected to these holes called hip socket. So when we ride, look how close the hip socket to the seat bone is to the guy. So you cannot sit on the front here. These bones are super thin. These cause the pubic branches. This is the seat bone. Now look how much more forward the hip socket is on the female versus the seat bones. Okay? For a seat bone, for a lady to balance on the pelvis is much difficult because the butt cheeks, the tailbone, and the lower back is straight, tailbone longer, butt cheek close. Look at the girl. More lordosis, butt cheek higher, shorter tailbone. So she has less support here. And then on top, the pelvis axis is more forward and before you put your seat bone down, you fall back. So if you ride in the male saddle, because there is no difference between male and female saddles, you will always follow into a hole, and you got to use your lower back, look at this neck, to compensate for it. And again,
so how would
yeah.
you know what brands like do different trees then? Like, because I remember in a different live you said that like when looking at the saddle once it's made, you can't really tell.
Okay, so there's 9 key elements how you can tell.
Okay.
Right? And to answer your question, to help people really to find very fast solution, the number one you want to see in the front and the crotch, is the saddle built like a rooftop? Because that's made for men. So the foam is like a point, and the narrowest part on the saddle stitching. Okay, so where you sit. Okay, here you see my saddle. See how narrow the ceiling is?
Yeah.
It's made very narrow, so it's very peaky in the crotch. So the male parts go left or right. So that's how you can tell if it's a male. A female saddle will always have this seam very wide, and there's a hole here. No girl likes to sit on a roof. Look at how she gets crotch pain. Look at the seat bone not even sitting, and this foam just cuts right into her crotch. While we as guys want that foam into our crotch, because that makes it very clear where the male's genital go, left or right. Women cannot put their genital left or right. See, she has no option. So by sitting on a rooftop, she gets crushed. So of course you have to ride like her, leaning back, or push yourself back, or go like this. And then of course your disc will go bye-bye. Second way you can test a female saddle, wherever your flap ends, okay, minimum of 8, if not 9 inches wide.
Okay.
Why? Because your seat bone on a girl are wider. Why? Because a baby has to fit through it. Right? So if you look from the bottom here, look how wide these seat bones are from left to right. And look at the guy, left to right. So obviously a male saddle is always way thinner back here. So now I sit on seat bones, and the point pushes my genital left or right. I'm happy. If a girl sits on the saddle, what kicks her in the crotch, hasn't support in the back, because on the male saddle, we cut all that foam out in the back for the long tailbone. Now the girl has no seat bone, right? Underneath the seat bone is no saddle. It's the seat foam. See how the seat hangs over the edge? And here the male is inside the foam.
Okay.
Right? So that is the biggest myth out there, that people actually think there is no difference between male and female pelvis. Massive. Because male saddles are built like the blue roof, female more like a red roof. Make sense?
Yeah.
So of course, there's 4 different shapes of female pelvis. I get it. Right? And of course, different European and Japanese have different pelvis tilts.
Weird.
Desirable for riding would be something like that. I get that. Okay? But in the general, because of the male genitals hanging outside, we have more space between our crotch, and our femur goes straight to the knee, to the foot. Girls have the parts inside, still the hip come out, and then like cone shape, they call it Q angle, goes to the knee, down to the foot. Okay? So of course you have girls with less Q angle, right? So that's how your humerus is shaped, in the neck of the humerus, or femur, sorry. So, but still, the pelvis is the most important part. So my suggestion, always get measured. Measure. Have yourself measured, and don't listen to people who say, oh, there is no difference between male and female, because that is the biggest myth out there. Okay, so I would encourage always people, if you get a saddle, okay, and you have to put it on the horse. Keep in mind, like humans, the horse's appendix is on the right. Most horses' mane goes through the right. In vaulting, most horses get launched to the left. They never go to the right. So when the horse when the horse eats and digests the food on the right, okay, so they bow out. You also know from studies the left side is a more dominant side. They like you on the left because they see you better. And if you ever had a stomach pain or something wrong with your organs, you feel miserable. You don't want your belt tight. You don't want people touching it. You don't want on the side. So horses don't want people on the right side. Or racing, same thing. Very few go to the right. Majority of the racetrack goes to the left. So if I know all that, okay, and I know I sit like this, you please think about the long-term damage. Get your saddle to position you more in the center of the seat, so you do not have to pay the long-term problem. Then this is too late. I told you the horse is dead. So if I can get myself in a right gender appropriate saddle in this, what we call a standing seat, over the center of the horse, now I have a fighting chance to make this work. Okay, so these are the absolutely incredible misconception there, that one saddle fits all, that there's no difference in male and female saddle, and that you can launch the horse or ride the horse straight. Sometimes you can if it's only muscles, right? But you can't do it unless you get your equipment balanced. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I had one question with like the deformities that you were showing in the vertebrae. Would that be something that's like they're born with that deformity then? Or is it something that is caused by bad saddle fit?
Well, majority they're born with that, but think about it. Most horses get ridden when they are 3 years old. Some on the Western and racing at 1.5. So let's forget them for a second. Just think about the 3-year-olds. The shoulder blade is developed when they're 4 years old. That means you're already ridden for a year in that saddle. Yeah. I just lost your picture. You still see me?
Yeah, I can still see. Can you see me now?
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I'm not like talking to myself. So number 2 is when they go crooked. That's where the most deformity happens, because you ignore the bigger left shoulder. Okay. This is caused by a saddle. The SI, the lordosis, the hunter bump. Okay. Because I ignored this picture. Look at the dust pattern, Shelby. See how much that whole saddle goes to the right? Yeah. And this is another way of veterinarians checking the back. They use thermography. Some veterinarians and some saddle fitter believe that the saddle needs to be hollow, and it needs to sit on the horse's back like a chair on the ground with 4 posts. Right? So research shows that's not acceptable. Why is that not acceptable? Because your muscle doesn't get the nutrition and the blood flow what it needs if you go over a certain pressure. Okay. Yeah, right? That makes sense. So we call that atrophy. And yet one of the myths is people believe strongly the saddle has to sit hollow. What does hollow mean? Hollow means it only sits on the front and in the back on the horse. That would look like, also known as bridge fit. Bridging. You can actually, bridging. You can actually see light through it, and you see how the back panel digs into this muscle of the horse. Absolutely ludicrous. Yeah, I was actually taught that you should be able to see light through your saddle when you like look underneath of it. There you go, right? Yeah. So that's what they teach. And yet there's articles online what you can read. When does the horse deform? Well, if you over exceed that pressure. Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very, I mean, we got everything we need. You know, we got heart monitors, we got cadence, elevation, trot cemetery. We can measure how high the horse jumps.
Mm-hmm.
This app is for free. That girth is like a girth. You can buy the girth or one of the girth sleeves. They used to be 1,000 pounds. Now you get them for 295
Oh, wow.
pounds. So they really came down in price. Right. So
Yeah.
it's all there. It's all researched, but unfortunately, the myth out there, it's out there, and people are confused. I don't blame him why they're confused.
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation, and I think that it's hard to differentiate sometimes because there's so many different opinions.
Yeah. But I think we all agree, people who grow up on horses, when you girth up a horse or you approach a horse with the saddle and they start changing from a nice little lamb to a fire-spitting dragon like this,
Mm-hmm.
That is not a belief on certain things. They just feel pain and they get ready to get upset. Now we sugarcoat it and we say, oh, he always does Monday because he hates Mondays.
Yeah.
I yet have to learn a horse what knows how to read a calendar. So it's unbelievable what people make out to sound good just to sell their equipment.
Yeah.
I like to live with facts. Okay. All these little capriles, they need the ability to go and feed the certain areas to feed the muscle. So if you have too much pressure on it, the muscle doesn't get blood support. Of course, they atrophy like this.
Yeah.
It's for me as black and white as it can come. Sure, you could wait and see when the horse completely deformed like this with all the holding lines.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I think we are now better. We know better. It's kind of like smoking. Some people stop smoking after they see the horrible pictures on the cigarette packs. But some people see the picture on the cigarette packs and still smoke.
Yeah.
They see the warning signs, they don't care. And the same thing with horseback riders. Some people don't care. No matter what you say, what you see. But I think the people who follow your kindness, your way you teach horses, the people who listen to us, they don't want their horses look like this.
Yeah.
Right? They don't want to see horses with holes in their back because of stupid saddles.
Yeah.
Or horses with rotated vertebrae or rib subluxation because of people's opinion. They want horses they love. They want to
happy
do
horses.
the best for them, right?
Yeah.
And I like to say the majority of humans love their horses and they will do whatever it takes to be nice. But because of social media and all kinds of opinions, there's a lot of miscommunication out there, misconception.
Yeah.
And of course they get confused. But how can you blame them,
Yeah, exactly. Like, people are well-intentioned, but they just get led astray sometimes.
Unfortunately, But I'm a big believer in this picture. People love their horses and they will do whatever they can to make them happy.
And making the information easy to find will hopefully help people in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, here we go.
Yeah, thank you. That's really interesting. It's cool looking at the vertebrae and the deformities and whatnot. The post-mortem photos. Those are cool.
Have I ever shown you this thing here? This used to be the first handheld laser for horses.
Oh, cool.
And now you get this app for free where you can take your horse's back measurements with your phone.
Oh, wow. Really? What's the app called? That's so cool.
Horse Shape. I'm going to send you the link.
Okay, perfect. That's really neat.
Let me see. I'm going to look at it right now. So in case people listen, I want to make sure I quote that right.
Yeah.
And okay, it's called Horse Shape.
Cool.
All right, and what I like about it, it doesn't cost anything. I'm going to stop sharing. You can see it.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And then you can turn this over.
Whoa.
And then they make a shape out of that, and of course the computer can make every cross section from it. And it's cool for you when you want to see how your horse changed in training. Okay?
Yeah, that's insane. I never knew that there was apps like that.
Right. So if you have a
Cool.
phone that has Face ID, yeah, so some smartphones have it or not, you can anything what's three-dimensional. You know,
Okay.
your couch, it's made for the
Yeah.
horses, but your horse. And then when they, if you like, that's where they make the money, right? If you
Yeah.
like, you can then order the fitting set.
Yeah.
And then this
Cool.
fitting set gets set to you. You put it on the horse, it fits like a glove. Or we
Mhm.
have people who have this horse shape. Person in Singapore, they
Mhm.
emailed us the horse measurements, and now we're sending the saddle fitted to them.
Cool.
It's relatively straightforward. We can put it inside. Here you see the horse shape upside down. You see how crooked the horse is,
Mhm.
right? So this
Cool.
can all fit in the saddle and then fit.
Wow. That's so cool. I didn't know that there was stuff like that.
Yeah.
Makes it easy.
We fit it on this blue sapphire. This is like a beanbag. So we push that shape on, and then we suck the air out, and it becomes like wood, rock hard. Right? So imagine you have this here, right? Comes to us. Then we put that on the horse, on this thing.
Cool.
Close the valve, suck it out, and then there's your horse in my shop.
Yeah.
One of the first things, remember this toy, you push your
Yeah.
hand in it? Right?
Yeah.
So that was the first idea of measuring horses back. Very heavy, cumbersome, and awkward.
Yeah.
But it's all out there, and people do all kinds of ideas to make it better for the horses.
Yeah, that's so cool. I didn't know that there's stuff like that. That's good to know. Oops. Yeah.
So this calls horse shape. Definitely want to do it.
Horse shape. Okay, I'm gonna download that.
It's so
Cool.
easy. I like how easy how they did that. They've done it.
Yeah,
Incredible
that's
job.
genius. Genius.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for joining again. It's
My
always a
pleasure.
pleasure. Yeah, thank you again. And yeah, we'll see you soon because we're doing a few more in June. So I'll think of some topics and ask around and see what people want to hear. And then we're ready for more. Everyone's always ready for